This strictly non-partisan national summit, organized by the Patriots and the Nigerian Political Summit Group, as you know, is a group of respected elder statesmen and women who are committed to achieving the unity and good governance of Nigeria under a suitable People's Democratic Constitution. As a background to this summit, it is important to state the following indisputable facts that are recognized by all our citizens, except, of course, those who would want to continue to live in denial. First, Nigeria is a pluralistic country. And like all successful pluralistic countries around the world, for its stability and maximal development, its constitution must address its pluralism by being formulated by elected representatives of its diverse peoples. Our present 1999 Constitution, as amended, is not such a constitution. It was not democratically formulated. It was instead imposed on the country through a decree by the military administration. And the governance system derived from it is not only non-inclusive, but also induces over-expenditure of the nation's resources on administration rather than on capital development. Hence, the need for a new constitution made by the peoples of our country. There are also equally incontrovertible facts about the current situation in our country. First, there is serious insecurity of life and property, with kidnappings and killings happening virtually every day in most parts of the country, especially in the Middle Belt, the Northeast, the Northwest regions, where not only huge numbers of life and property are regularly lost, but also farmers are no longer able to go to their farms, thereby impacting adversely on the country's food supply. Secondly, Nigeria has become the poverty capital of the world, with the levels of poverty and sufferings among the citizens rising rather than diminishing. And thirdly, the development of the country's infrastructure is generally lagging behind, including especially in health and education facilities, which in many cases are no longer fit for purpose. Fourthly, there is eroding sense of national unity within our pluralistic country that is still struggling to become a nation. Again, there is a palpable mood of hopelessness and lack of confidence in the future among the growing population of our young people. And overall, the present 36 federating units are obviously incapable of generating and sustaining the pace of national development achieved in the early years of our independence under the 1963 Constitution. In organizing this national summit, the patriots are of the view that the incontrovertible facts that I have mentioned can be more effectively reversed if our pluralistic country is given a more credible and truly federal constitution, democratically made by the Nigerian people, a constitution that would be in sync with the constitutions of successful pluralistic countries around the world. To those who say that the fate of a country depends primarily on its leadership, I say that the constitution from which the system of governance is derived largely determines the character of the people who get elected or appointed to govern the country from the three arms of the government. It is therefore my hope that the deliberations of this summit, which has in attendance so many leaders of thought and representatives of the country's major socio-cultural groups, as well as representatives of the important women and youth sections of our society, will produce recommendations on the key elements of the desired new constitution and the process of its actualization. The key elements, I hope, that will be discussed should include such questions as presidential or parliamentary system, tenure and rotation of the heads of government at the national and sub-national levels, unicameral or bicameral legislature, number of federating units, powers of the national and the sub-national governments, structure of the security agencies, political parties and their organization, management of the country's resources, and indeed other important features of their constitution. And in considering the process of actualizing the new constitution, I hope there would be due emphasis on ensuring that it is formulated by representatives specifically elected for that purpose by the Nigerian people, who, in order to give it legitimacy, would have to endorse it in a national referendum. Finally, I want here to thank the organizers of the town hall meetings that preceded this summit in the 6 geopolitical zones, which have provided ideas that are to be fed into our deliberations. In ending my remarks, I would like to stress the importance of speakers adhering to their allocated times so that we can have as many speakers as possible within the 2 days of our meeting. I thank you.
I think something is about to happen. Before 2027 election, something is definitely going to happen that is going to even shock the country. Because now even the Northerners have even advocated or agreed that constitution, we should have a new constitution, not even to amend itself. While some are saying, well, if we amend the constitution, it's going to work. Some say we don't even need amendment. Amendment is not going to work. That we need a brand new constitution. Brand new constitutions. What and what will be in that brand new constitutions? A lot of things. So now, the Northerners are even in support of these constitutions. I think something is definitely going to happen before that 2027 presidential election. I will allow you to, as you listen to this, I will allow you to listen to this video so you understand what we are saying, how far we go, these people. Because it's not going to be Nigeria before 2027. Things must surely happen. This has to change, and we need to see the direction before we even go into 2027 presidential election. We need to see the direction. that we are going into before that election and after election. What happens? We know, okay, this is a new constitution. Even if you win the election, you are working based on this constitution. That should be, at least to an extent. We know, not this present constitution. If under Tinubu's, there's no constitution again. There's no law. Tinubu is the one ruling, dictating, and everything. So everything has collapsed under him. They quickly needs to fix this now before it gets too late. Now, take your time, listen to this video, and all of them speak one after the other. I want you to do me a favor. If today is your first time coming across this YouTube channel, please do me a favor to subscribe and hit the notification button so that when the video like this is being posted, next time you'll be the first person to see. So please subscribe to this YouTube channel and let's go there. Let's watch the video.
Leading northern groups, to which I belong to one, I was not here in the numbers that was expected. I'm afraid I didn't have anybody's mandate to offer up an apology or to speak for them. But I suspect that the dominant thought behind the failure of northern groups to be here would have been the idea that this is just going to be another talk show. And quite possibly, because they are elite, it will be elites talking to elites, and no good thing will come out of this. Which is really sad. It's a very sad reflection. But prepare to be shocked. I think they will be correct too. Look at this room. The average age in this room would be, what, 45, 50, 55? The average age, with all due respect to the high table here, would be 60, 70. I don't know if there's anybody participating here who is 35 in this room, unless they are serving things. Yes, only you. The point I'm making is we've done this over and over and over again. We're trying to fix a country. We're trying to see if we can produce the best constitution, and we're using the same language that the British did from day one. How do we create a country where the elite determine what happens? It was never about the citizen, never. Why aren't we talking about the citizens' constitution? Why are we talking about ethnic federation, types of groupings? What is the difference between the poor man in the village in Kano, a city, a town without drinking water, no tarred roads, or in Zamfara, who lives daily with killers and bandits? What difference do the number of local governments they have? What is the difference between how many local governments they have between them and Anambra or Apaibo? We are not concerned with the citizen. If we're going to rebuild Nigeria, it has to be on the basis of a nation of citizens, not a nation that we elite want. This is what we have been getting wrong. We're talking about how we want to see Nigeria. Nobody's talking about the federation of citizens. First, identify the citizen. Go back to the Constitution. Read Chapter 2, the fundamental objectives and directive principles of state policy. Read what is in there. That's the closest we came to defining what Nigeria should be, how Nigeria should govern, what ideals we should. Nobody talks about them. You know what they did with that? They created a fantastic Chapter 2 and took out the bullet out of the gun. They made it non-justiciable. And that was the closest to define what is Nigeria, who was it designed for? Why is it not possible for the citizen in Yobe to have the same rights, the same privileges as the citizen in Ondo? Why does it have why must he be defined by his ethnic group first, and not by his being Nigerian? Why can't we build a nation that gives the citizen first rights, inalienable rights that are the same wherever he goes, no matter what language he speaks? We're still talking about ethnicity. We're talking about things that cripple us rather than things that will do things for our citizens. So if we want to really design or redesign a constitution, whoever does it, and I assure you this administration will not do it, the next administration will not do it. If you are looking up to this government or subsequent governments to submit to the will of the elite to redesign a constitution that fits another elite that is not currently enjoying power, you are wasting your time. Nigeria may go down as we're going down. I pray to God it doesn't. Or it might recover and find its course and its mission. But it will not be done by us. The way we're going, if we're not careful, we will write a constitution, but it will be written by sweat, tears, and blood of young people who we kept out and we're keeping out, and we're designing systems and processes that fit us and do not address the needs of the young Nigerian. We want a citizen's constitution. No matter how difficult it is, we can write a citizen's constitution. I was very interested in my senior brother's last presentation. I'm going to be told to stop talking, so let me be quick. He listed heroes of democracy. In those countries, virtually every one of those countries where those people came from, they had to fight a civil war. We don't want to fight a civil war again. We fought one. We missed the point. When elites fight, you get a civil war. When our young people are knocking on the door now saying, please let us in, this country belongs to us, not to us in this room, to them. And we pretend that we will design for them a Nigeria that fits us, not them. They will break that door and they will come into it. And we're at that point. There's anger, there's alienation, and we have kept the energy and the anger of young people outside, and we think we can sit in comfort and design a Nigeria for them. We are wrong. And if we think we can take a document to this government or another government to say to them, design this or redesign this, is wrong. People who benefit from Nigeria of today are sitting there benefiting, and they will not change Nigeria. They will not change the system. You want to go to the people that this constitution has produced, who are benefiting from it, 80% of our resources are in their hands and their pockets, and say, please stop what you're doing and do this, take power from you? It's wrong. They will never do that. We need to have a sense of urgency about this too. We're going about it as if it is just another thing that we can take the next 5, 10, 15 years. Nigeria doesn't have 20 years to continue to survive. Believe me, honestly, it doesn't. Anybody who tells you Nigeria can survive for another 20 years with the level of alienation and anger and violence and poverty is wasting their time. They don't know this country. So what do we need to do? Yes, sir. We need to speak more with each other, but we need to speak more with the younger people, with women, with groups that are not part of what is going on. We need to organize change beyond the hotels. We need to ask why the northern groups are not here and reach out to them and say, you are suffering as much as we're doing. We need to tap the young people in this country, recognize them, use their energy, use their strength, and rebuild Nigeria with them. Thank you.
Amendment. And that amendment creates more freedom. So just like the Senate Book said, we should not legalize political crisis. And the last point I want to make is that I think there's a crisis around two things. One is ideation. What I hear here is about Nigerians saying, what kind of people do we want to be? Baba and I made a point, and I think I want to understand that point. The crisis of our constitution is that we have to make a choice when we want to be a democratic modern state built around the concept of democratic citizenship. That's very important. If we are not willing to be a nation, one nation, defined by common citizenship, then we're going to go back endless circle, whether it's state creation, whether the minorities from 1958 Wilkins Commission, the debate led to the 1960 Constitution, with the provision for fundamental human rights, with the provision for Nile Delta development, with the debate around state police, and Wilkins concluded that we should have first federal police, after 3 years we can have regional police. So I want to provoke that every constitution, look at the US Constitution, they always follow a political theory. The theory around who do we want to be. In 1957, for example, just to provoke us, the Northern region brought experts, including Professor Anderson and the chief imam of India, chief of Pakistan, to take around how should Northern Nigeria deal with the issue of Sharia. And they gave us a model that was reflected in the 1960 Constitution, which is a secular state, just like we have in Indonesia. But through our practice over the years, we have destroyed the Nigerian concept of secular constitution. And in 2000, we now had 12 states, up to now, literally, from a secular constitution. So the point I'm making is this: I think we should have a national conference. And the end of the national conference will be for us again to think around, what do we want to be as a country? This patchwork, this sorcery around constitutional amendment will not work. Because constitutional changes arises from political event. Just last year, Chile did a new constitution to end the Pinochet era. It was a political discussion to create a new constitution. So I want to end on this note. I will end just now, sir. Nigeria's fundamental crisis is primarily that of concept. Do you want to be a modern democratic state founded on democratic citizenship. Chapter 2 comes in. We don't want to be a multi-ethnic, theocratic, neo-feudal state. Our crisis is a crisis of idea of who we want to be. A modern state built on the concept of citizenship, or a multi-ethnic, neo-religious, theocratic, neo-feudal, multi-ethnic state. Let's think about it.
We're discussing this within the context of the need for a new constitution for our country. So I thought that in laying my context, I should really make the point that the assumption that Nigeria is an exceptionalism is a fallacy. There is no exceptionalism about our country. The truth is that it is an urban legend for us as Nigerians to constantly think that our complexity has never existed anywhere else in the world. It has existed, and there have been problems expressed properly in order that solutions could be found. And empirical evidence abound showing that there is no aspect of our problems that one country or the other did not have and solve. So that's my number one key point, to say that one of the things that has kept us unable to move and shift the needle on the conversation on what kind of a society we want to build is this impression that somehow we are exceptional, and so that we cannot find pathways that have been tested and proven to work. You know, I have a mantra. That mantra is, in God I trust, everyone else must bring data. You know, the thing about this conversation on the Constitution that has made it difficult for us to make progress is that we have not been data-led. We have not been scientifically led. We've not allowed empiricism and analysis to support and project why we all must think of the necessity to correct deformities, dysfunctions, and distortions that obviously are hobbling us. When we understand that, then it would not be necessary for us to have arguments that are not underpinned by the kind of evidence that shows that structure and function go hand in hand to produce better outcomes. That's what research shows us. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Chair, nothing in our destiny consigns us to massive failures of the kind that we face on all fronts. Nothing in our destiny suggests that values, our politics, our democracy, our governance, rule of law, institutions building, effective regulatory frameworks, order and stability, economic growth, prosperity, development, socio-cultural issues, inclusion, social cohesion, equality, and equity cannot operate within our territorial boundaries. Nothing in our destiny suggests that we cannot achieve these desirables. So, in this all-important debate that we are having, the dialogue that we're having on the necessity for a constitutional democracy that works for all, it is important that we should be willing to reset our minds and embrace the mantra of all things are possible to them that believe. Ladies and gentlemen, why does a new constitution matter? It turns out that research has shown that in political systems, structure acts as a powerful determinant that shapes political outcomes, often more than ideological intentions and individual leadership. Did you hear what I said? So, according to research, structure acts as a powerful determinant that shapes political outcomes more than ideological intentions or individual leadership. Constitutional architecture fundamentally constrains political possibilities. A presidential system, for example, creates different incentives than a parliamentary one. And I leave Obong Atta, who is a specialist in that conversation about parliamentary or presidential. Federal structures distribute power differently than unitary states, creating multiple centers of authority that must negotiate rather than operate a single hierarchy. All of these things are the structural issues affecting our capabilities to optimize our endowments. So, ladies and gentlemen, historical examples show that structures and the durability of them can determine how far a people will go. We're solving for what precisely? When protagonists for a new constitution put their voices out there championing the cause. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're solving for distortions, for dysfunction, and for structural deficiencies. And what does research show? In a place of distortion, dysfunction, and structural deficiency, there is absolutely no pathway to productivity and competitiveness. If there is no pathway to productivity of our country, to the competitiveness of our country, in a world that is led by competitiveness, where are we headed for? Where are we headed for? We can jump around in circles, but research shows this. It is only people who do not intend to go anywhere that will be told that research has proven some things, and you argue against it. Why? It doesn't make sense. So my own specific conversation, having laid this context, is the proportional representation issue. It refers to the general principle that is found in electoral systems in which the popularly chosen subgroups or parties of an electorate are reflected proportionately in the elected body. For example, if a party receives 30% of the votes, then it should ideally receive approximately 30% of the seats in parliament. It is a core principle on the basis of the idea that you cannot exclude people from the process of governance just because they are minorities or because they do not have the power that others with advantage have. Ladies and gentlemen, the principle has a historical justification that was eloquently stated by John Stuart Mill in 1861, and this is his quote: "In a really equal democracy, every or any section would be represented, not disproportionately, but proportionately. A majority of the electors would always have a majority of the representatives, but a minority of the electors would always have a minority of the representatives." Mr. Chairman, our democracy is in distress. One thing is clear: nobody is enjoying our democracy. But another thing is clear: none of us would like to give up our democracy. And the only way that we can assure it against the distress and then create a pattern for our governance on a good set of parameters is to have this conversation on the constitutional reform for our country. I just want to say that when we look at the various groups that are necessary to create proportional representation, the groups that are often excluded: women, young people, vulnerable groups, minorities, and people living with disabilities. And what has happened is that a proportional representation ensures that this does not become an embedded political culture. So what does it say? It lays out some principles like fairness, principles like representation, legitimacy, and inclusion. So what do we know of what we lose as a people if we do not have a constitutional process that enables us to entrench these core values? What we know, for example, when it concerns the women, is that data has shown us that our country ranks 181 out of 193 countries in the Interparliamentary Union 2024 report on women representation in parliament, with only 3.6 of National Assembly seats held by women. This stark underrepresentation is a product of both cultural and systemic barriers entrenched by the current order that we practice. Well, it turns out that we are destroying our possibilities, because data also shows that when women are included in governance, outcomes on public probity, public accountability, good governance, economic growth, stability have been higher and in places where this does not exist. So we harm ourselves, Mr. Chairman, by ignoring what is right in our faces. Ladies and gentlemen, countries who understand the full inclusion of their women in governance, they don't do it because we love our women. They do it because they love themselves. They know that it is injurious to the collective good for half the population of their society to be disconnected from the train of productivity and competitiveness. So don't do it for Nigerian women, do it for yourselves. That is exactly what this is about. Mr. Chairman, in 2 minutes I'll be done. The other group is, of course, the young people. Ladies and gentlemen, we're in the 21st century. So it happens that in this 21st century, we're talking about the 4th Industrial Revolution, and in fact the 5th, right on its back. And this revolution is essentially a revolution of disruptive technologies. The one that you must know is AI, artificial intelligence. Now, what do you think is going on with this? What is going on with this is that the race is still wide open. So it means that nobody can claim we are the leading authorities yet. You know what that means? It suggests that if we got our constitutional processes right, there are incredible opportunities that we can tap into, and that comes through the second group that we're excluding right now in governance, the young people. Do you know that across the world, our continent is the youngest continent? Europe, average age of their population is 44 years. America, it is 38.9 years. In China, it is 39.2 years. In Latin America, it is 33 years. In India, it is 29 years. In Africa,